Hello everybody and welcome to another top 5 board gaming video about nature. Before I get started, if you haven't done so already, please take a look at all my various social media pages as well as my Patreon page. On all of those you'll be able to interact with myself as well as my channel in all sorts of really cool ways. That said, moving right into nature. This is a huge category, and what are we talking about? We're talking about plants, animals, the environment, biospheres, all sorts of different stuff. Just all of that weird stuff that's like outside, away from where the games are. So essentially these are games that can let us pretend that we're going outside. So I approve of it. But again, this is a huge category. There's a whole lot of games that do this in all sorts of really interesting and fun ways. We've got some games that do it in a very scientific, hardcore level, and others that just use it as a more thematic theme surrounding a bunch of mechanics. That said, most of the games I'm going to be talking about here are essentially a combination of both of those. A lot of them have really good theme. Others are just using nature as the idea behind a mechanic type of thing. But that said, you guys know that I always love to hear from you. What are your favorite games about nature and why? Are they ones that are really intent about teaching you about some natural aspect, or do they just use it as a facade for a mechanic? Let me know anything and everything that you guys think in the comments below. But with that, we're going to get started with my number 5. At number 5, I've got Arboretum. This is a wonderful set collection based card game that involves collecting and planting trees, essentially. Now that said, the theme itself is kind of tacked on, and you can do it with pretty much anything, and we see it with pretty much anything, such as New York Slice, Lotus, and a few other games. But that said, the way it's implemented in Arboretum is absolutely wonderful. The art is gorgeous, and relatively recently it got a second printing. So it's still a great game, but it's not inherently about trees, for example, in this particular case. But regardless, Arboretum is my number 5. At number 4, I've got K2, a board game about climbing a really big mountain. It's kind of cool because you have a lot of the aspects of actual mountain climbing, such as ensuring that you have enough oxygen, making sure that you can weather storms, stay safe, and all of that kind of thing. However, at the same time, as far as nature is concerned, like, yeah, you're out in the elements, the mountain is definitely a natural thing, but typically snowy, ice-capped mountain, climbing up and that kind of thing is not the first thing that most people think of when they think of nature. That said, it's a little bit of an off-the-wall game. It's still really, really fun. It's great strategically, and it plays well with numerous numbers of people. So that said, K2 is my number 4. At number 3, I've got Photosynthesis. This is a gorgeous board game with beautiful art and an intriguing way of showing the mechanic of how shade affects tree growth. Now, it's not meant to show photosynthesis in a super scientific way, which is why it's a little bit lower on this list, but the way that the mechanic is implemented is absolutely beautiful, with the idea being that the sun goes around and around, and the trees that get hit first will grow higher and higher. Some trees do better in the shade, others do better in the direct light, and all of that kind of thing, just like in nature. Now, again, it doesn't go into the deep science of it, but the game is beautifully done, the mechanics are extremely smooth, and it plays very, very well. Photosynthesis, my number 3. At number 2, I've got Dominant Species, the first and only game on this entire list that I actually own. This is a great game about territory control, taking advantage of what your species is capable of, and dealing with an ever-changing environment. One of the wonderful things about this particular game is it's made by GMT. They are very famous strategic board game makers of all different sorts. In this case, we're talking about a hex-based tile map that we've got, and depending on what type of species you are, whether you are a mammal, reptile, bird, etc., all these different types of things, you can survive better or worse depending on the conditions, and at the same time you can eat your fellow opponents according to the food chain. The way that the aspects of the food web, food chain, and survivability in different climates is wonderfully implemented in the game, and that's why it's so high on the list. The scientific aspects of this game are absolutely wonderful. You even have a little bit of an evolutionary aspect as well, not to the extent of the game evolution, but still enough to make an impact on the game end, and it means that it's really fun, and it shows everybody truly how nature can work and how an environment can come together and how communities interact with one another in the outside world. Dominant Species, my number 2. At number 1, I've got Reef, A great game about building and maintaining a coral reef and everything that goes into it, all of the unique plants and animals and corals and all of these kinds of things. It's absolutely amazing. It's brilliantly done. They have tremendous art for all of the cards, and the mechanics are very smooth. It plays well with multiple numbers of players. Plus, I just love the theme. I've got a fish tank myself that I really adore most of the time. Sometimes it's kind of frustrating, but I still really enjoy messing with it, and I love to see it in a game like this, especially one that's done so well. With that said, Reef is my number one. Well, folks, that's going to be it for me. I hope you enjoyed this little video on my top 5 favorite games about nature. Now, again, some of these are about the theme really fitting very well. Others are about the extreme scientific aspects of how nature works and all that kind of thing. And so it's a huge category. There's a lot of games that are about nature in some way, shape, or form, all the way from atoms and building up atoms, not even to mention molecules, all the way up to full species and planets and moving around and all that kind of stuff. So with that, you guys know I'd love to hear from you. What are your favorite games that are about nature? What aspect of nature is it, and why do you love the game so much? Please let me know any and all thoughts that you have in the comments below. Again, you guys know I love hearing from you. But with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.